Let us now continue with the methods of purchasing. Contract purchasing. Although all purchases are made through the contracts, the term contract buying is applied to these special contracts which call for the deferred delivery over a period of time. Contract buying is purchasing made under a contract, usually formal, of the needed materials, the delivery of which is frequently spread over a period of time. So, contract purchasing is mainly for the purchase of the items which is related with the deferred delivery. Deferred delivery here will mean the delivery at a different point of time, not immediately. The delivery will be postponed. The characteristics of contract buying are: the contracts are given to the suppliers for the large amount of future requirements for a certain period. Normally it is for a year. Quantity received per occasion is generally small. The cycle time between two consecutive receipts may be a week or a fortnight or a month or any period considering the value of requirements, distance and the mode of transport. The buying department usually takes sufficient time to secure competitive bids and negotiate on the terms of the contract. Based on the meaning of the contract purchasing and the features of contract purchasing, namely the contracts which are given to the suppliers with a larger amount of the quantity, and again the buying department will take time to secure competitive prices and it negotiates with the supplier. Now we can see the pros and cons of contract buying. Contract buying offers many advantages over the methods of purchasing in the market, that is market purchasing and hand-to-mouth purchase. We shall now see the advantages first. Contract buying saves the company from the trouble of inviting the quotations, preparing a comparative statement, placing of orders, etc., which will be necessary on every occasion when the items are required. So this reduces the expenses of procurement of materials. So here the quotations are not invited and it is not analyzed and the comparative statements are not prepared, and again the orders are not placed on the basis of the quotations received. So the procurement expenses are kept minimum. So we are going to have a special contract with the suppliers. And again the buyer is guaranteed with the regularity in supply of the items, though we have fluctuations in the market. So in spite of the market fluctuations with regard to the demand, supply, the price, etc., the buyer is going to have a guarantee and he is assured of the regular supply of the items. And again, as the materials are supplied in a regular basis, then the buyer needs to keep a very little stock in his hands as safety level. This will reduce the investment in the inventories as it reduces the locking up of capital in the stock, and once again the carrying cost of inventory will also get reduced. Normally the prices on the other terms of the contract are generally favorable to both the parties, and once again the buyer can plan the requirement of finance as he has an advanced idea as to when and how much the vendor should be paid. So it is a regular purchase, so he can easily estimate the payments to the vendor. Let us now see the types of the contract buying. We have three main types: rate contract, running contract and service contract. Rate contract is the contract where the rate is fixed and not the quantity. So the rate of the items, the price of the items are said to be fixed and the requirements may be changing. That is, the quantity may be changing. Running contract is the contract where the rate and quantity are fixed for a contract period. So for a specific period of contract, the rate and the quantity of the items are fixed. As soon as a particular contract is supplied by the vendor or it is fulfilled by the vendor, then the contract automatically comes to an end. So the quantity to be supplied under a particular contract is supplied, then the contract is said to be complete. Service contract is said to be a contract wherein various services, not the items or the goods, it is said to be the services which are obtained periodically. Say it may be a maintenance service or it may be a repair service, etc. So where the intangible services are given. So the contract buying can have a rate contract, a running contract, and once again the service contract. So in rate contract, the rate is fixed but not the quantity. And in case of running contract, both the rate and the quantity is fixed for a particular period. If that particular contract is completed, then we will go for the other contract. Service contract is contract for the services to be rendered by the vendor. Now, we will see about the suitability of the contract buying in an organization. This is suited for the procurement of materials and production items which are of regular use. So you don't have frequent modifications or you don't have frequent changes in the nature of the items to be purchased. So the procurement of the materials and the items is said to be regular and standardized. Service contract is entered to obtain periodical service, and that servicing may be the maintenance and the repair of all your capital items like machineries, right, and other fixed assets that are needed for the production. Thus, contract purchasing is said to be a purchase made as per the contract, normally a formal contract for the delivery of the materials which is spread over a particular period of time. Next comes the blanket orders. Blanket orders refer to the purchase of variety of items from a single source, usually a middleman. So blanket order is one single order for many items. See, miscellaneous items can be covered under this blanket order. It is an order which specifies the category of the items to be covered by the orders. And these items will be having a very low unit value. The middleman can be selected more than one to avoid the hold-ups in case of non-availability of a particular item with any one middleman. Market price is generally specified in the order, which may include a specific method of determining the price variations. The supplier is informed of the requirement over telephone, who supplies and bills at the prevailing price less the agreed discount. The records of the supplier are open for inspection on demand. Alternatively, the buyer may contact the vendors over telephone, inquire the price from them, and ultimately buy from one who has quoted the lowest price, the other terms of contract being common to all. We shall see about the responsibility of the purchasing department in case of this blanket orders. The middleman who is selected should be a stockist who is known for his honesty and reliability, and these stockists should be placed within the vicinity of the factory, and these stockists should be given preference over the other stockists. The buying department must continuously watch the items in the group and periodically check up whether the demand for any item has risen considerably to justify its removal from the group and purchase as an individual item. And this method of purchase, namely the blanket order, is most suitable to the hardware items, electrical supplies, stationeries, small cutting tools, etc. So the items which are said to be low unit value, and we have many items that can be purchased from a single source, then that will be made under this method called as blanket orders. So the supplier who is selected must be having honesty and integrity, and this supplier must be placed within the vicinity of the factory. The next method is the tender purchasing. Most of the government departments and public sector undertakings in our country follow this method of buying. The buying department establishes the bidders list and invites them to submit the bids. A tender or quotation is written offer from the supplier to tender a specified service or supply materials of the specified quality at the specified price and within the specified time. On receipt, bids are evaluated by comparison and the right supplier is selected. Lowest price is the criterion used except when a supplier quoting the lowest price has questionable delivery time, quality reliability or financial stability. The buying department will invite tenders and advertisers in the newspapers. The tenders will specify the requirements of the items in terms of specifications and other engineering requirements, the color, the size and the other specifications. These tenders will be reaching all the suppliers through the newspapers. The newspapers will be read by all the suppliers, and the suppliers who are able to supply according to the specifications mentioned in the tender will send quotations to the organization in a sealed covers. All these sealed covers will be collected and it will be evaluated according to the quality, price, the delivery time, etc. The tenders will be taken care of by the suppliers and the quotations must be prepared as per the specifications in the tenders. So the evaluation will be done according to the specifications and the lowest bid will be selected without sacrificing the quality. This is the normal procedure. After the bid has been selected, then the order will be placed to the supplier. The tenders may have different types. One is a single tender, next is the closed tender, open tender and global tender. Single tender refers to the system of tendering wherein the details of the requirements are communicated only to one firm. This is called as bona fide, single buyer and a single seller. The competition is almost nil and the price is fixed by the mutual agreement. As there is a single seller and a single buyer, the buyer's design and the buyer's specifications, the buyer's requirements will be the prime fact to be considered. But the price will be fixed mutually. As there is a single seller, the competition is almost nil. This type is followed only when we have a sole selling agent, and this sole selling agent is going to supply the materials. The next comes the limited or closed tender. This tender refers to the system of tendering wherein enquiry is sent to the limited number of suppliers who are on the approved list of the suppliers, and quotations are received in response. The organization will select the suppliers and they will keep it in the approved list. This list is very much limited and the tenders are sent only to those suppliers who are on the approved list. The defaulting suppliers in the past will be placed on the grey list and they are called as grey list suppliers. The default may be in the form of the errors or the non-conformance with the quality, with the quantity or the price or any other terms as agreed upon. So the grey list suppliers should not be supplied with the tenders. Only the approved list of suppliers will be given with the tenders. The decision concerning the number of suppliers to whom the entire enquiry is sent is usually laid down in the buying policies of the management. The private sector firms usually send an enquiry to 3 to 8 suppliers depending upon the rupee value of the order. However, the public sector firms are not able to restrict the number of tenders to 8. All the registered suppliers will be given a copy of the enquiry. Next is the open tender system. This open tender system is a system of tendering wherein enquiry is advertised in newspapers or periodicals or the trade journals of the home country and tenders are received in response. As this system encourages unlimited competition by publicizing the enquiry, this method is called as open tender or advertised tender or unlimited tender. This method is used for the items which are required in large quantities and which are very difficult to procure. The next comes the global tender. Global tender is a system of tendering wherein the enquiry is advertised in newspapers and trade journals of not only the home country but also in the foreign countries, and the tenders are received in response. The global tender system is used for purchasing the items involving huge investments such as the procurement of plant and machinery, the procurement of the technical know-how, etc. And this procurement may be either capital in nature or technical in nature. So the tender has 4 methods, namely single tender, wherein one buyer and one seller will be there; limited or closed tender, wherein the tenders are given only to the closed group; open tender, the tenders are given in the newspapers of the local area or the home country, then global tender it is for the foreign countries also for the purchase of capital equipments. This tender buying is said to be a most important technique in the hands of the purchase manager to select a qualified seller on the basis of the competitive prices. This method eliminates a kind of favoritism or the personal preferences or personal bias in the selection of the vendors. But this method is said to be very costly and time-consuming method, and this will be used only by the private sector undertakings when the purchase price is very high. Now we shall see what are all the responsibilities of a purchasing department in case of the tender purchasing. For each new product or any material or service, the buyer must obtain quotations for at least from 3 suppliers, and that to the potential suppliers. The past performance of the old suppliers must be taken into account while deciding on the contract of a new item. The buyers must guard against the suppliers who submit extremely low quotations initially and increase the price later. The complete secrecy must be maintained until a final decision on quotations is to be taken. And the buyers must also refrain from revealing to any supplier the price quoted from others. The quotations must be evaluated considering the capability of the competing firms, and the bid should be very high enough to yield a reasonable margin of profit to the potential vendor. So this quotation method or the tender method is said to be best suited to select a best supplier from the competitive market, and the specified quality with a specified price with a specified time is possible under this method of purchasing. Next comes the seasonal purchasing. Seasonal purchasing refers to the buying of annual requirements of an item during its season. This method is used for the items available in a particular season only. The items may be for food processing and other similar industries. Naturally, it will be based on agriculture, agro-based industries. So they will have a seasonal purchasing. The main features of the seasonal purchasing are as follows. There are certain items, namely the agricultural products like sugarcane, the perishable products, and it will be available only during a particular season, and they need to be purchased and stocked in sufficient quantities till the arrival of the next season. The items covered may be smaller in size, but they may be required in large quantities. But the market price is lowest during the season, and therefore the purchases can be made at the cheapest rates. Usually, the manufacturers are contacted during the season and direct purchases are made. This method is suitable only to the seasonal items which have shown a marked price increasing during the off seasons. The buying department have a responsibility of locating the producer of the items and to negotiate the price and other terms according to the advantage to the company. So seasonal purchasing is mainly meant for the seasonal products wherein the prices are low during the season and the prices are very high during the off seasons. So it has to plan accordingly and purchase the materials or the items and store it properly. The next comes the group purchasing. Group purchasing refers to the buying of items of trivial value in single purchase order. The features of group purchasing are: items procured in small quantities are classified into few basic groups, the group being dependent on the source of purchase. Take for example, drills and taps are placed in one group, whereas the plug gauges are in other group and screws in other group, etc. So the items are classified into few basic groups. Minimum and maximum levels are fixed for each item within each classified group. So minimum level is said to be the minimum level of stock below which the level should not get decreased, and this minimum level will be equivalent to the lead time for the purchase. Maximum level is the level beyond which a stock cannot be stored, or the items cannot be stored, because it will result in the excessive investments. One single order or one purchase order for each group covering a number of items within its groups can be placed to a supplier. So single order can be placed to the supplier mentioning the number of varied group items within its group. Stock on hand is reviewed periodically, say once a month or once in 2 months. The quantity equal to the difference between maximum level and stock on hand is procured for each item. This group purchasing results in a significant reduction in the clerical work and also the cost of delivery, because a single order is placed for a number of varied small items instead of individual order for each item. So this group purchasing is said to be purchasing in a group, and these items will have a small value, and this is made in a single order. Next comes the subcontracting. Subcontracting is the work placed with the outside supplier to manufacture a particular item as per the instructions or specifications of a main contractor for the economic reasons or to augment the existing manufacturing facilities. Subcontracting is the hiring of another firm to perform some of the manufacturing operations or to furnish certain parts and sub-assemblies to be incorporated into the buyer's end product. Subcontracting is of 3 types. They are as follows. A company makes some quantity of the final product and buys the rest from outside. This happens when the company receives big orders but lacks the capacity to supply the full quantity within the contract period. So the main contract will be received by the organization, and a part of the contract will be given to the outside people. A company concentrates on certain items of assembly and buys the rest from outside. This type of subcontracting with which the industrial buyers are concerned very much. So while assembling the products, it is going to concentrate on certain items and they are going to purchase the different items, that is the other items or the components from outside. A company gets certain operations, namely the services like rough blanking, heat treatment or molding. Some operations will be done by the others because either it does not have such facilities within the company or its present facilities are overloaded. So say for example like welding, molding, fixing, so all these actions may be given to the others. The production facilities within the organization may be overloaded, or they may not have such facilities or such technical know-how in their own place. So we have three main subcontracting. One is some quantity of the final product itself given outside. Sometimes only the assembling parts will be given outside, and some services like operations will be given outside. Now we shall see what are all the factors which are said to be highly desirable or favorable for the subcontracting. Subcontracting is said to be favorable for the product which involves a number of components requiring different types of machines. And it is also suitable where a specialized expertise is required for certain components or operations and the same is not available within the firm. There may be a shortage of capacity at the home plant which cannot be made good immediately. The manufacture of a component involves the use of special manufacturing facilities whose procurement is economically non-viable. Subcontracting saves the buyer from incurring the investment cost in specialized machinery and tooling. Investment cost should be looked upon as an unwise decision when the demand is of temporary nature or utilization is likely to be poor due to irregular production requirements. Extra capacity which is irregularly required can be generated by either borrowing facilities from vendors or subcontracting the items to them. The comparative economies of the decision, the cost to manufacture the product at company's own plant versus the cost of subcontracting justifies the procurement from the subcontractors. So the economies of the decision of manufacturing or purchasing from the outside must be made and it has to be justified by the purchasing department. Let us now see the responsibility of the purchasing department in case of subcontracting. The buying department has to locate, select, develop qualified subcontractors who can supply the components of right quantities, right quality and according to the time schedule and at a reasonable price. Since subcontracting is basically an extension of one's own plant, the subcontractor should be within close proximity, either in the neighborhood place or within a reasonable distance. Proximity to the subcontractors has lot of advantages like low transportation costs, effective follow-up and the like. More than one subcontractor should be selected for each component provided the requirement justifies so. Having more than one subcontractor helps to bring an element of competition between them, which helps the buyer to have a competitive price and a good quality product. It also helps to maintain the supply of goods from alternative source in the event of any production hold up with one of the subcontractors. The buyer should work out a detailed quality assurance system with the subcontractor both about the manufacturing processes and instructing aspects. Manufacturing aspects should include the exact operations and the sequences. Inspection aspects should include raw materials inspection, work in progress inspection and finished product inspection. Further, the inspection criteria should include gauges to be used during the inspection at each of the selected inspection points in the manufacturing process. Acceptance standard for each of the elements should also be discussed and finalized between the quality control personnel of the buyer and also the subcontractor. Test certificates and inspection reports to be submitted to the subcontractor and specific records to be maintained by the subcontractor should also be finalized. For the components subcontracted to specialized users, the buyer should ensure that his own quality control department staff has fully understood the product specification and the production specifications and also the inspection standards. Delivery scheduling is most important aspect of subcontracting. Subcontracting is done not only for stocking but to feed the components to assembly with minimum inventory build-up. Since stocking adds to the inventory cost, the subcontractor should be selected after detailed discussions on the capacity requirement by the buyer, capacity available with the subcontractor, and the frequency of production runs. Subcontracting decisions must be based on the outcome of the cost. So this subcontracting may be done for the production of some part of the final products or some components or for certain operations. Other than the above methods of purchasing, we have some other methods which are also in practice. That is purchasing by requirement. Purchases are made whenever a need arises and that too the quantity required is to be purchased. This method is suitable for the order jobs wherein the goods are used infrequently. Then purchase for a specific future period. This method is suitable when goods are regularly used whose price fluctuations are negligible. Then comes the JIT purchasing, just-in-time purchasing. The JIT purchasing is normally wrongly perceived as the activity of pushing the inventory on to the suppliers. It is in fact the technique of eliminating waste in purchasing functions by developing long-term, mutual, beneficial relationship with fewer but better suppliers. The JIT purchasing also aims at eliminating the waste in the production processes and also in the purchase processes. In case of eliminating the waste in the purchase processes, it includes the reduction in the order processing cost, follow-up cost, stock-out cost, packaging, packing cost, freight cost, and cost of handling the materials. Then JIT also deals with eliminating waste at the supplier's end. That is the transportation cost and also the cost of rejection. It also eliminates the purchasing inventory with a inadequate planning. JIT purchasing is based on the following principles. Suppliers' facilities are the extension of buyers' own facilities. So one has to treat the supplier's facilities as its own extension. It has to bring the supplier's facilities within its own purview and inspect the same. Long-term and mutually beneficial relationship with fewer but better suppliers are necessary. Delivery lot size should be just enough to satisfy immediate higher level requirement, and the rejections interrupt supply chain and hence it must be eliminated. Buyer and seller should jointly identify the problems and activities that do not add value and initiate action to achieve continuous improvement. Now we shall see what about the implementations of JIT purchasing, the basic requirements for the implementation. Locating, selecting and developing the suppliers capable of high quality performance so that incoming instructions can be avoided and line rejections do not take place. The local resources closer to the buyer's plant should be preferred so that the transportation cost which is associated with the small quantities does not offset the savings due to the lower level of inventory investments. Entering into the long-term contracts covering 18 to 36 months and renegotiable every 6 to 12 months. This will cut down the lead time drastically, maybe by 2 weeks. The system contracting is said to be a most important step in case of successful JIT purchasing. Restricting the number of suppliers of any component or material to 1 or 2. Fewer suppliers are also necessary because no company has the resources to develop mutually beneficial relationship with the hundreds of suppliers. Then increasing the frequency of delivery to daily or weekly. Visiting the supplier's plant or the vendor's plant at least once in a year. Imparting training to the vendors in the JIT concept and bringing an end to the adverse relationship. Maintaining detailed records of the problems faced in the assembly and providing a feedback to the suppliers for necessary adjustments, since most of the problems do not appear at the instruction stage but appear after the component successfully passes through the scrutiny of an incoming instructor. Then assisting the suppliers in implementing the JIT manufacturing in order to eliminate waste in their plants. So these are all the basic requirements for the implementation of JIT purchasing. Now we shall see the difference between the JIT purchase and the traditional purchase. JIT purchasing will be made in small lots with a frequent deliveries. But in case of traditional purchasing, the purchase will be made in a large size with the less frequent deliveries. Single source of supply for a given part or a component will be selected nearby the manufacturing place, that is within the vicinity of the manufacturing place, and the contract will be for a long term under JIT. But the traditional purchasing will go for a short term contract and it will rely on the multiple sources of supplier. Under JIT, the emphasis is placed on the product quality, the delivery performance and the price, but no percentage of reject from the supplier is acceptable. But the traditional purchasing, the 2% rejection will be acceptable from the supplier and the emphasis will be on product quality, delivery performance and price as in case of JIT. But the percentage of rejection differs. No rejection will be accepted under JIT, but a margin of 2% is accepted under traditional method. Counting and receiving the instruction of the incoming parts is reduced and eventually it is eliminated under JIT. But under traditional purchasing, buyer is responsible for receiving and counting and instructing all the incoming parts. The primary objective of JIT is to achieve product quality through a long-term contract and a fast price. But under traditional purchasing, the primary objective is to get the lowest possible price. Under JIT, the concern for both inbound and outbound freight and on-time delivery is that delivery schedule will be left to the buyer. But under traditional purchasing, the concern for the outbound freight and lower outbound cost. Delivery schedule will be left to the supplier. The blue specifications will be mentioned in the JIT. The buyer relies more on performance specifications than on product design, and supplier is encouraged to be more innovative. But in case of traditional purchasing, the specifications are said to be very rigid. The buyer relies more on the design specifications than on the product performance, and suppliers have less freedom in the design specifications. Regarding the paperwork, the JIT has less paperwork, and the delivery time and quantity level can be changed even over the telephone calls, that is over the oral communication. The traditional purchase requires a great deal of time, and formal paperwork changes and delivery date and quantity require the purchase orders. So the JIT will have the small standard containers used to hold the exact quantity and to specify the precise specifications. But under traditional purchasing, regular packaging for every part type and every part number with no clear specifications on product content. So these are all the differences between the JIT purchasing and traditional purchasing. It differs with the product lot size, in selection of the supplier, the validation of the supplier, receiving and instructing the parts, negotiating and bidding the process, determining the mode of transportation, specifications of the products, and the clerical work and the packaging function. So this JIT will definitely have modern concept of purchasing practice. With this, we are completing the methods of purchasing. With the above discussions, you may understand the different methods, more than 10 methods of purchasing, and an organization may select any particular method which suits its own requirements. So this scientific purchasing depends upon the selection of the methods of purchasing. So we shall see the purchasing procedures and the departments which are in charge of the purchasing in the next session. Thank you. Scientific purchasing is a technique of purchasing goods of right quality in right quantities at right price at the right time and from the right source. By adopting suitable purchasing methods in centralized and decentralized environment, the objectives of scientific purchasing can be easily achieved. Where the replenishment method merely replaces inventory that has been sold, scientific purchasing uses sophisticated calculations to forecast the inventory requirements. This method will ensure that the organization order only what is in demand and that organization do not replace the stock that is unpopular or out of season. In order to accomplish this, scientific purchasing uses a combination of statistical tools to measure the trends and then predict future requirements based on those trends. Linear regression is used to determine average daily demand for the past periods. This average is then used to predict how much stock an organization will sell until the next order is received. Changes in the retail price due to promotions or price increases are also considered as our current inventory on hand. Orders due to arrive, bonus sizes, case packs, and seasonal fluctuations in the market. The main objectives of scientific purchasing are to procure the needed materials at a competitive price of right quality, in the right quantity and at the right time. to maintain the continuous supply of materials to ensure production schedule at a minimum inventory investment. To ensure the production of goods of better quality at a competitive price by procuring materials that best suit the product and the purpose for which they are intended. To suggest better substitutes to the materials which are currently being used with a view to lower the cost and maintain the quality of the products. To render assistance in standardization, variety reduction, value analysis, make or buy decisions and other cost reduction programs. To assist in fixing probable price and the delivery schedule. To create goodwill and enhance the company's reputation for being fair and maintaining the integrity through its dealings with the suppliers. To enable the company to maintain competitive position and earn a fair return on its investment. So the objectives of scientific purchasing will be: first one is to have a right quality, right quantity and at the right time at the right price. Then to have a continuous supply of the materials to ensure a continuous flow of production at the minimum level of investments in the inventories, and producing goods of better quality at the competitive prices. Then to find out the best substitutes for the materials which are being used currently and to maintain the quality of the products also. Then going in for standardization, variety reduction and value analysis and the cost reduction programs, and fixing up a probable price and delivery schedule for the products, and to create a goodwill and reputation for the company and to enable the company to get a sustainable competitive advantage and to ensure a fair return on its investment. With the background of the basic objectives of scientific purchasing, let us now see how it is important in an organization. Commonly, purchasing is used to denote procurement of materials, machines and tools on payment. But nowadays, purchasing is taken as a function and it has acquired a new dimension, and as such it is termed as the procurement function with a view to reduce investment, variety and value of materials so as to facilitate the standardization and competitive marketability of the product. Purchasing is a process which includes all the functions involved from the time the need is felt till the receipt and the approval of the materials purchased. The scientific purchasing has become the integral part of the materials management. Scientific purchasing management is defined by Walters as the procurement of the purchase of the proper materials, machinery, equipment and supplies or stores used in the manufacture of a product, adapted to marketing in the proper quantity and quality at the proper time and at the lowest price, consistent with the quality and desire. Modern industrial purchasing is usually called as the scientific purchasing, and it is said to be the function of the specialist in this particular field. It also calls upon the training on part of the people who are engaged in this purchasing activity. Thus, scientific purchasing is an executive activity which calls upon the cooperation of all the related functions in the organization, such as planning, production, distribution, financing and other management functions. Gaunt is of the opinion that 2/3 of all possible gains through the most efficient management of production could be realized by having all the materials ready when you want it, where you want it and in the condition you want it. Purchasing is also defined by the Alford and Whitty as the procuring of material, supplies, machines, tools and services required for equipment, maintenance and operation of a manufacturing plant. Thus, scientific purchasing involves the procurement of the goods and services necessary for the organization, ensuring the right quantity and the right quality at the minimum possible price, and the procurement of the materials must be accordance to the production plan and the product to be produced, and also the purpose of the purchasing should also be mentioned. Ensuring the availability and the arrival of the goods at the time when it is required is said to be most significant fact to be considered. Delay for the lack of materials results in the loss in the labor time and also the wastage of the machine hours. Avoidance of the blocking of capital in inventories is not required. Bulk purchasing as far as possible should be generally avoided. Finding a substitute with a view to improve the quality, reduce the cost of the product and conserving the scarce raw materials is also the significant fact to be noted. In order to ensure a good turnover and maintain a fast sales records, it is necessary that purchasing may be made in such a manner which helps the organization to face the competition in the market. Competitors are always interested in excelling others. They can surpass if they do better in reducing the cost and offer quality products at a cheaper rate than what is being offered by the particular organization. The scientific purchasing aims at giving a jolt to their planning and leave them behind by resorting to the scientific purchasing. Higher return on investment can be ensured provided the purchasing is properly and scientifically managed. Purchasing department can easily function in an advisory capacity to the management because it is placed in a better situation than any other department in the organization. The purchasing department is in close contact with the market and it notes the recent trends in the market also. This will enable the department to offer the suggestions which may carry the conviction and weight for the organization. The purchase department is also of invaluable help to the whole organization in molding the manufacturing and marketing policies as per the demand of the market with which the department is in constant touch. The purchasing department is entrusted with the task of procuring the materials, the needed materials, the supplies, machines, tools and service at an ultimate cost consistent with the economic conditions surrounding the item being purchased, and to safeguard the standard quality, continuity of service, the competitive position and the company's reputation for fairness and integrity. The modern trends in the legislation makes it essential that the purchasing department also should watch the enactment of the new laws in the country. And it should also notice the business regulations and ensures that the company follows the regulations and never dares to violate the regulations. Thus, scientific purchasing is of high beneficial one to the company, as proper sales can be planned and to have a continuous flow of production, and the purchase department will be in a position to advise the other departments regarding the market conditions, and it can contract with other firms and maintain proper vendor relationships. The scientific purchasing is said to be a valuable weapon in the hands of the purchase department to plan properly regarding the production flow in the organization.